Hey guys, according to the Halifax House Price Index here in the UK, house prices in the UK are expected to fall by 8% in 2023. Now, why should you care? What does that even mean for first-time buyers, existing homeowners, property investors, that sort of stuff? I want to just share some thoughts. But at the same time, I want to look at the report and just unpack what that could mean for those various groups and what I think you should do today if you're a first-time buyer in particular looking to get onto the property ladder. So here's the headline. The average house price in the UK is currently £281,272. That is a 1.5% decline compared to last month. Okay, so I'm doing this in January, so it's compared to last month's a 1.5% decline and a quarterly change of 2.5% downwards. So property prices are falling for sure. However, when you look at it from an annual perspective, it's a 2% increase compared to the same time last year. So this report I'm looking at right here on my computer was released in December 2022. And compared to December 2021, the average price of a UK property is still 2% higher compared to the same period last year. But they are forecasting an 8% decline this year. Now, let's just remind ourselves what's happened. We obviously know what's happened, but I just want to not assume you know what's happened in the last year with the UK property market. From a price perspective, we started December 2021 at around £275,000 being the average price for a UK property. And then what happened 6 months from then was absolutely insane. Prices just totally rocketed and it became a seller's market. Everyone was trying to sell their property. People were also trying to go onto the property ladder. And that drove that average property price to around £291,000, establishing a really high property figure, average property figure in the UK at around, looking at this, at around June 2022. And then obviously we all had fun in the summer, all the exuberance of the summer, knowing that, tough times lay ahead with the cost of living crisis. And so as we saw with that, with all the events with the UK economy through the summer, with the mini budget and the Bank of England raising rates and what have you, the average property prices kind of stabilized a little bit up until around September, September 2022, when it then started to decline and fall gradually. So it's been month on month, 4 months of declines in the average property price in the UK. Now I want to read you what the report from Halifax actually said, pointing to what they thought about 2023. I'm going to read this word for word. And it says, as we enter 2023, the housing market will continue to be impacted by the wider economic environment. And as buyers and sellers remain cautious, we expect there will be a reduction in both supply and demand overall, with house prices forecast to fall around 8% over the course of the year. It's important, it says, to recognize that a drop of 8% would mean, this is the key bit, would mean that the cost of average property returning to April 2021 prices, which still remains significantly above pre-pandemic levels. So on one hand, you could say, do you know what? 8% drop, that's amazing. First-time buyers are like, wow, this is brilliant. I can finally start to go into the property ladder a lot cheaper. However, property prices are still extremely high compared to what they were pre-pandemic. And so that raises a question. What should you be doing right now if you're somebody who is thinking about getting onto the property ladder? Should you just wait for all those expected falls to happen before you jump onto the property ladder, or should you get on now? So I'll talk about that, and then I'll talk about what that means for existing homeowners, property investors, that sort of stuff. As for first-time buyers, I think personally that it really depends on a number of factors. One of which is it depends on where you are trying to buy your property. So looking at London, for example, just picking London, obviously I know the world London's not the capital of the world, but London is a global city, and it's important to look at London. It says here, looking at the report, that the cost of an average home in London in December 2022 was £541,239. And it says here, a growth of 2.9% annually compared to an annual growth of 5% in November just gone. Okay, so although we've seen a bit of a decline in property prices across the UK, it's clear that London remains resilient. Okay, and of course it remains resilient because I don't know when last you went to London, but if you go to London and have a look, there are a lot of well-off people in London. All that foreign money that's coming in, they're all going into buying up assets in London. In fact, I actually heard something like around 600 millionaires moved to London from China in, I think it was 2021. Yeah. And obviously, that's not just Chinese, it's the Americans, it's whoever, right? So there's basically people moving into London as has always been a trend for some time, and London has become ever more of a global city. So I think the question remains, if you're trying to get onto the property ladder and you are trying to buy in London, to be honest with you, an 8% fall, well, first of all, you're not really going to get that in London, I don't think. But a fall in London wouldn't really mean that much to you necessarily. You have a small fall, as we've seen. But if you're trying to get on, if I was trying to get onto the property ladder and I had a deposit, I'd focus really on the uncertainties that people are experiencing right now. And the fact that people are like, should I do it? Should I not? I'd explore that as a way of negotiating and trying to get a really good deal if I can from a property perspective. And obviously, if you haven't got a deposit, then really, you're not really in the game. It's about waiting and saving and hustling really to try and raise that deposit before you then look to capitalize on the falls that are expected across the UK. And if you are buying outside London, then it would make sense. It would make sense to actually see how things play out over the next 6 months. Build up more of a deposit because you will need it. Stress tests are a lot tougher with trying to get onto the property ladder. And at the same time, with falls expected, what you really want is to have a decent amount of deposit. So focus a lot of your effort on saving a bit more, because that saving will help you when it comes to getting better rates from an interest rate perspective, as well as just having a much bigger proportion of the property that you own in terms of equity, rather than having a lot of debt under your belt. But I will point you to this report, which I'll link to below for you to head over and check out, because I think it's really worth looking at, because obviously the report then goes into other areas that in terms of what they expect, growth expectations in various areas such as the northeast, the east of England, West Midlands, Wales, Scotland, and places like that. Those are definitely worth checking out. But I would say, the things I've just mentioned earlier, the things that I would do if I was trying to buy in London versus if I was trying to buy outside of London. Now, what does this news actually mean for existing homeowners? Frankly, for most existing homeowners, it means nothing. Property prices are falling. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm focusing really on trying to get by. I'm trying to pay my bills. I'm trying to pay my mortgage. I'm trying to, navigate the current situation with the cost of living crisis. However, saying that though, there is a group of people who will be worried about property prices falling if they're existing homeowners. And that's those people who have quite a lot of debt under their belt, and the worry of possible negative equity being a problem for them is something that people will be concerned about if they haven't got a decent amount of equity in their property. So the focus, if I was in those shoes personally, it would be to try and pay off a bit more of your mortgage, if you can do that, if you can overpay on your property. I personally do that. We talk about that a lot on this channel, and it has always been a good thing in my personal view to overpay if your budget obviously allows it. And then obviously if you've got a decent amount of equity in your property, an 8% fall, well, things, year on year, as I've mentioned before, it hasn't really made much of a difference, to be honest. As you can see, year on year, property prices are still high, so you're not really losing out that much. And then for property investors, what does this mean? This is good news, obviously, for people who are trying to buy property, who can stomach the challenge, the risks of owning property and renting property. This is good news, because they can obviously get in. Professional property investors obviously look at whether a deal stacks up, whether a deal makes sense. So in any case, this would be good news for those people who are trying to maybe get their foot on the property ladder from an investment perspective for the first time, or those who are maybe remortgaging products they've got already, or trying to make further purchases for investment purposes. I think much more generally, it's good news from an investment perspective. But as I mentioned, there are existing challenges to renting property with interest rates rising, or to being a property investor, among many other things. Changes in tax, changes in other regulatory things that are coming on board, EPC changes. There's so many things that are happening. So we've made a video recently, actually, where we asked some of our friends who are property investors just some of their thoughts, just to get a different voice onto our channel. I'll link to that video below as well as above. And do check out our property investing playlist here on The Humble Penny, where I think you find some really useful videos really helping you on this journey if you are somebody who's exploring property investing, or just more generally as a first-time buyer trying to get onto the property ladder. But guys, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are your thoughts about, how are you receiving this news about property prices expected to fall by 8%. Is it a big deal? You know, are you excited about it and waiting for that to happen before you get onto the property ladder? Or is it insignificant given property prices are already too high? Jump in the comments and let me know. If you really enjoyed this video and the videos we put out on our channel, it will mean a great deal to us if you hit the subscribe button. That really helps our channel to grow, and this is what we want for this channel, is for it to continue to grow and to have more impact and help more people with their decisions, with navigating their finances, and ultimately working towards becoming financially independent one day. So please subscribe, because that really helps our channel. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you guys in comments, and as we say on this channel, as always, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Okay, take care. Bye for now.